During the past few years, one of the most debated issues in the entire world has been the ability for alternative energies such as water power, solar power, wind power, hydroelectric power, hydrogen fuel cell power, and even nuclear power to effectively replace fossil fuels. Now, it is important to consider that this debate does not even take into account when alternative fuels will surpass petroleum products, or even if we should promote alternative fuels. It simply asks whether alternative fuels will eventually effectively replace fossil fuels as the primary source of energy in our country and around the world. The answer to this question is obviously yes, because of the ever-advancing technology in the alternative energy industry, as well as the freedom of choice that alternative energy provides, including the reliability from choice that it provides as well. My first point is to consider the rapidly growing technology in alternative energy. This industry is constantly advancing its energy in order to most effectively harvest the renewable energy from our environment in the most efficient and sustainable manner possible. According to ecobusiness.com, because of advancing technology in wind power and solar power, during the past 20 years, these two energies have had their prices decreased by 80%. Now just imagine how much that will decrease in the next 20 years. Because of this, more and more people have been able to access this type of alternative power. In addition, companies such as Tesla Motors, who make electric cars, are starting to show Americans that alternative energies can provide just as much power and even luxury that gasoline engines can provide. Now, alternative energies are currently only in their infancy, as we have not developed them much before. However, we have had fossil fuels for many centuries now, and yet there have only been a few breakthroughs in efficiency that have been major and affected the efficiency of these engines. New technologies are simply easier to advance in the near future, and this proves that alternative energies will increase in their efficiency very quickly. Secondly, there's a vast amount of choice that we have in what alternative energy to actually use. For example, Senator Rathuri stated in his speech that solar power is not very reliable because it relies on solar power and the sun being out all the time. However, while I concede that solar power itself is not very reliable, analysts conclude that when combined with wind power and hydroelectric power as they are currently, they can effectively and consistently power entire cities and entire countries. In addition, Senator Rathuri continued to state that nuclear power is unsafe. I would like to contradict this. Nuclear power is one of the cleanest and most efficient ways to make energy currently. While I do agree that it is unsafe currently, this debate is not talking about current times. It is simply addressing the fact that if alternative energy will eventually replace fossil fuels. Analysts suggest that nuclear energy will be much safer, nearly 100% safe within the next 30 years. I also would like to agree with Senator Shanmugam, who stated that nuclear fusion would be a viable source of energy by 2050. This is very true, and nuclear fusion is much safer than nuclear fission. It only produces harmless helium atoms as its product, while producing tremendous amounts of energy. Other less discussed forms of alternative energy are hydrogen fuel cells, biofuels, and geothermal energy. And together, all of these sources will one day be able to effectively provide strong and reliable energy for the entire world. Senators, as it is clear, there are many factors present today that are quickly pushing alternative energy onto the forefront of the energy market. Fossil fuels at today's rate of consumption will be depleted by the year 2052. This is alarmingly close in the future, and people and governments will understand that it will likely need more alternative energy in the near future if we would like to continue our energy consumption. which will in turn push the development of alternative fuels. For these reasons, alternative energy will definitely and certainly one day be able to effectively replace fossil fuels. Thank you, and I'm now open to questions.
Senator Chinpuri, question?
You state that alternative energy will eventually overpass and effectively take away fossil fuels. However, there are studies showing that we will lose fossil fuels in the near future. How would we cope with that loss?
Like I stated in my speech, the most common studies state that fossil fuels will only be depleted by 2052, and this is especially concerning oil. Coal and other sources will continue even 10 years after that, so we do have some time. And this debate does not consider currently or in the near future. It simply says, can alternative energies ever replace fossil fuels? So yes, we won't actually have to cope with that if we start improving from now, because this process is not going to take a day. It's going to take many, many years.
More questions? So, Senator, do you think if we improve the efficiency of our gas engines and our coal-powered plants, the supposed fossil fuel energies could last until another 100 years?
Well, you see, the thing is, fossil fuels have already been used for so many centuries. People have tried and tried to improve efficiency, but instead of concentrating on this, humans have tried to improve power and things like this. So it's already been shown that humans aren't concentrating on this, and while we could change to do this, it is better once we have the chance, instead of just starting anew and trying to improve efficiency in fossil fuels, it's better when we have the chance to start over, to start improving alternative energies immediately, because we know that fossil fuels will eventually run out, whereas alternative energies will not.
And also because the way the work habits are changing, more and more people are working from home in the internet age. People are, in the next 10 or 12 years, people will not be traveling as much. So this energy, fossil fuel, might last for 200 years.
Well, you see, this has also been taken account into many of these analyzations that fossil fuels will run out within 2052. And in addition, not all fossil fuels are only used by transportation. Fossil fuels are also used especially by industries and factories, and at home and for electricity in houses. So just transportation will not have much of an effect on the fossil fuels depletion.
Senator Kulat?
Ever since like the first car was made, or the early 1900s, cars have always run on fossil fuels. So how, in the future, how will people start using cars that don't run on fossil fuels and run on renewable sources like electricity or hydrogen and stuff?
Absolutely. Like I stated in my speech, however, there are companies such as Tesla Motors, which manufactures electric cars. And I would like to ask anyone in the audience, though you don't need to answer, I'm quite sure that nobody had heard of Tesla Motors more than 5 years ago. Nobody understood that such a powerful and luxurious car could be made so quickly and without notice. And now it's a common car that is driven by many people around the world and in our country. So the same thing can happen to other cars. People can change, and manufacturers will shift towards the trend of being eco-friendly and using alternative fuels.
All right, thank you. We have two speakers online, so we'll have Senator Kurjekar first, and then Senator Sati